One of the first steps to inkle weaving is making your heddles. I'm going to show you how I do that, and this method works for just about any inkle loom. You will need your loom, some crochet thread, and some scissors. So first we need to figure out how long we need to make our heddle threads, and to do that, I start with a couple of dummy warp threads. The first one is going to be the open thread, which runs from the front peg to the top back peg. And the second one is going to be my heddled thread that goes from the front peg to the top front peg, then to the back. The rest of the warp doesn't really matter. I secure these threads so that they hold tension, and then we're ready to measure. Now we're going to get our thread that we're going to make our heddles from. I use a size 10 crochet cotton, but you can use a different size or a different fiber if you want. We're going to start out making a big loop that reaches at least from the heddle peg to the top peg. Maybe bigger, because we can always make it smaller. Place the loop end on the heddle peg. Come up behind your upper thread, which is going to be your heddled thread. We're going to give this a little twist, and then come back over that heddled thread and back around the heddle peg. We're going to put in a surgeon's knot by twisting around twice, and this gives us a way to adjust our length. Now right here, this is a little long because if we try to get an upper shed, it's very, very small. So we're going to tighten up our knot, but if we tighten up too much, we're going to have a heddle that's too short, and we'll have trouble getting a lower shed. Ideally, you want your open threads and your heddled threads to be at the same height up to the point of the heddles. So we want to match those up so they're about the same. Once we have our length figured out, we're going to secure this length with another knot on top of the surgeon's knot. Just a plain knot. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Double checking my length before I secure this down. And we're locked in. If we double check our heddles one more time, if we lift up, we've got a great upper shed. We push down, we've got a good lower shed. And so this heddle is the exact length we need it to be. I like to tighten down my knots and add an extra overhand knot on top of them just to make sure everything's extra secure. You don't have to do this, but I like to. I remove my test warp because I don't need it for the next step. And now we're going to find a combination of pegs that we can use as a jig for tying the rest of our heddles. These two make the head is a little too loose for the heddles, so I'm just testing different combinations to find out one that makes a nice snug jig. This one is usually the combination I use for this loom. But I'm going to show you I could also go this way and use this combination of pegs. So just play around until you find something that makes a nice, secure, snug fit for your heddles. Some people make or buy a separate jig using wooden pegs or nails on a board, so that's an option too. And now we're going to take our heddle thread and we're going to measure out several lengths of thread. Working around the pegs that you're using as a jig, plus a few extra fingers in length, we're just going to wrap several threads. You can wrap all of them now or do a few at a time. Then we snip our length, and now we have a bunch of threads all the same length. Next, one thread at a time, wrap it around your jig, and then we're going to tie a knot. I use a surgeon's knot, which is 1 and 2 twists. Pull that tight. And then I put a granny knot on top, which is a leftover right, and then another leftover right. Some people use a square knot here, which is a left over right, right over left, but a granny knot is faster for me. Let's look at that again. A surgeon's knot. 1, 2 twists, and then a granny knot, left over right, left over right. Then we just repeat that process, tying as many heddles as you need. Because you're tying them against these pegs, each one is going to end up the same length. After we've finished tying all of our heddles, I like to secure the knots a little extra. I pull on the knots to be sure they are tight, and then I throw an overhand knot on top of each one. This just adds a little extra security so the heddles don't come untied while I'm weaving. After that, I can snip the long ends and our heddles are finished. When you are putting on your heddles, you hold the heddle behind your thread that it's going on. You give it a little twist. You fold it over that warp thread and you place both loops on the heddle peg. I like to push the knot to underneath the heddle peg so it's out of my way. Once the heddle is on, you should have a nice shed both on the bottom and on the top. And knowing what pegs are your jig, you can always add more heddles as you need them. To store my heddles, I untangle them and I hang them off of a peg on my loom. I line up the knots so all the knots are together. Once I have untangled and sorted out all of my heddles together, I pull them off the peg and I start twisting them. And I twist them very, very tightly. And then I put one end of the loops through the other end and allow that to twist up on itself. It makes a nice tight little skein, like a very tiny little skein of yarn. This will keep my heddles from tangling until the next time I need them. Thanks for watching and happy weaving!